Martin here, and in this video we're going to look at what is a variable. So this is my first video, and what I'm hoping will be a series, a Swift Basics series, where we look at some of the core programming concepts. So if you are just starting out in your programming journey, these core concepts you can take and apply to any programming language, but we're going to look at them, and then we're going to look at how you can specifically apply them in the Swift programming language. So like I said, in this video we're going to look at what a variable is, why we use them, and then how to implement it using Swift. So let's get started. So like I said, this first video is going to talk about what is a variable. So essentially a variable is a space and location in memory where you can store data or information, and then you can access and change that during a program via a unique name that you give it. Okay, so I'm sure you completely understand what a variable is at this point in time. Well, you're probably actually thinking that makes no sense. What are you talking about? So let's try and break it down and make it a little bit simpler using an example. So if you think about adding so you've made a new friend and you want to add their mobile number as a contact in your phone. So the first thing you're going to do, you'll open up your contact, and then the first thing is you're going to hit that plus button. Okay, and hitting that plus button makes a little bit of space in your phone's memory ready for a new contact. Okay, so when we declare our variable, it makes some space in memory. The next thing you do, so do you just put the phone number in and then that's it? No. First thing you do, or second thing you do once you've hit that plus button, is you give that contact a name. Okay, because it's much easier to refer back to a name that you have given that phone number than just to have that phone number in there without anything assigned to it. Okay, and again with a variable, we give it a name based on what we're going to store in there. So once we have hit the plus button to make some space in memory, and then we've given our contact a name, we then assign it the phone number. So we input the phone number and save. So then whenever we refer to that name in our phone, we're essentially referring to the phone number that's stored under that name. Okay, and that's the same with our variable. We declare our variable to make some space in memory, we give it a name to make it easier to refer to, and then we store some data inside of it. And again, to go back to that mobile phone example, if their phone number changes, then we can change that phone number that's stored inside. And that's the same with a variable. The key to a variable is that the value inside of it can change. Okay, so let's try and put that example together in Swift. So I've got Swift Playgrounds open here, and what we're going to do is we're going to just open up a new blank workbook. So if you haven't done this before, we'll click on See All, and you should find a section called Starting Points. So what we want to do in Starting Points is we want to get this blank workbook here. So we're going to click on Get, and you can see it's added onto here. So what we can actually do here as well before we start is go to Rename Playground, and I'm going to call this one Variable. Otherwise, what you'll find very quickly is that you end up with My Playground 1, My Playground 2. If we get in the habit of naming them now, it'll be easier to refer back to when you think, oh, how do I do a variable again? And you can just go straight to your variable playground. Okay, so at the minute, I've just clicked on, and we've just got a completely blank playground that we can add our data to. So the first thing that we're going to do, and you may have noticed at the bottom that we have some shortcuts here. Once you understand how to implement things like lets, vars, ifs, fors, then by all means use the shortcuts. I would, before you understand how to do it yourself, I would try and still keep in the habit of typing it out. Me personally, I just think that that is a better way of learning it. So I'm just going to close that for now. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to make our space in memory. So we're going to type VAR. Okay, so like we've hit that plus button in our phone. I'm going to give it a name. So I'm going to put Martin phone number. Now, you may have noticed that that's kind of written in a little bit of a strange way. So it's written in what we call camel case syntax. So essentially, we start lowercase and all of the letters are lowercase until we start a new word. So where I've got phone, I've got a capital P, and then number, I've got a capital N. So the reason for that is that we can't have spaces in our variable name, and it's just a way of trying to make it a little bit clearer to read separate words in our variable name. The other key point for a variable is naming it something appropriate. So I'm going to store a phone number in this variable of someone called Martin, so hence Martin phone number. So the next thing we're going to do is add the equal sign. Now, just to make it a little bit more complicated, the equal sign doesn't actually mean equals in programming. In programming, the equal sign is what we call an assignment operator. Essentially, all that means is whatever we're going to put here on this right-hand side, we're assigning to the word or words that we've put over here on the left-hand side. So, like in your contacts list on your phone, when you write the person's name, you assign them a phone number. Okay, so it's just remembering that the equal sign doesn't mean equals, it means we're assigning something. Okay, and then we're gonna give it a number. Okay, so it is as simple as that to declare a variable. So how do we actually see that value? How do we know if that has worked? Well, one of the simplest ways is to use what we call a print command. So I'm going to write the word print and then I'm going to open up a bracket and I'm going to put Martin phone number. So essentially what should happen now when we run our code is it will see that we've created a variable called Martin phone number that has been assigned this number, and it will print out the value stored in that variable. So let's go ahead and run our code. Okay, so if I hit this tiny little ABC icon here, you can see that the number we have stored in our variable is what's been printed out here. So in Playgrounds, it's a little bit hard to see that output sometimes. So if you click Add Viewer, it puts the output right underneath. So it hasn't printed the word Martin phone number because essentially in our program now, whenever we write Martin phone number, we're referring to the number that's stored inside. So remember I said one of the key things about a variable is that the value can change. So if we want to change, or what we call reassign, the value stored in that variable, we just write our variable name and then we assign, so remember that equal symbol means assign it a new value. So I'm going to go, okay, so we've now given it a new value and I'm going to print my variable underneath. And then what I'm going to do is run my code again. Okay, so we can see here that the value has changed. So up here, I've declared my variable, okay, and I've got the phone number ending in 111111. I've printed it, and that's what it's showing. I've reassigned my variable here, Okay, and then I have printed it out underneath, and it's now printing the new number which ends in 222222. So essentially, whenever we reassign, it essentially writes over the top of what the value that was stored in there. So it deletes that and then puts that in its place. Okay, so there you have it. That's what a variable is, and that's how you can implement variables in your code. When might you need to use this? Well, the easiest way to think about this in regards of, say, creating a program or an app is keeping score in a game. So when we're keeping score in a game, we know that that value can consistently change. Okay, you're not going to have a game where the score is always 10 and never changes. It always changes. So we need to be able to store that number that changes somewhere. And that's where variables come in. So you'd have a variable called score, and you would consistently update or reassign that value based on the score that the user was getting. So again, I really hope that this video has been useful for it. If it has, please consider giving it a quick like and subscribing for more of these programming and Swift basic videos. Thanks.